Hey, folks, good afternoon. Thanks so much for spending some of your precious time with us. We're excited to engage with more rural and community college organizations and leaders. So this really means a lot to us, and hopefully it will be informative for you as well. As Andrea said, I'm Craig Bristati. I'm currently the acting director for the office here, and I've been with the program since its inception in 2014, and have seen it grow and thrive, and in particular reach more and more great creative programs and communities outside of some of our more typical innovation hubs. And that's exactly what this effort is all about today. We recognize that innovation and entrepreneurship is absolutely happening today in all types of communities. And we want to let you know that we are here to support you. Spend a little bit of time with us this afternoon. I hope that you'll get a high-level understanding of what we're trying to fund and support through this program. And if you think it's a good fit for you and your efforts, then I hope you'll consider applying. And I'll get to that in a bit. And some of the importance there is that the important takeaway is don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole here. With that, Nathan, any remarks?
Well, thank you, Craig, and thank you to EDA for allowing us to partner with you on this webinar. So I'm Nathan Oley. I'm the Executive Director of an organization called the Rural Community Systems Partnership. We are a partnership of nonprofits across the country doing work to build capacity in rural communities, and specifically doing work around entrepreneurship and innovation and how we help rural communities create ecosystems that allow for that economic growth opportunity to come from small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurs. We are excited to be partnering today with the National Association of Community Colleges for Entrepreneurship, or NACCE, as well as EDA to host this, really with the goal of spreading the word about this program. We recently partnered with a number of organizations on a summit called the Rural RIS Summit, where we brought leaders from across the country focused on rural entrepreneurship ecosystem builders. And as a part of that summit, Craig participated in a seminar with other federal agencies and talked a little bit about the Regional Innovation Strategies Program. It's a great opportunity to create innovation hubs across the country. And from our perspective, getting the word out to rural communities is incredibly important in this movement. For us, as you look at the examples that Craig will walk through, and certainly the opportunity that Craig will walk through in this webinar, you're going to see an opportunity for many of you, hopefully, to see opportunities to apply and hopefully be successful in this funding. But for us, this is just the start of the conversation. It is continuing to work with EDA and a number of other federal partners to ensure that rural communities are represented, that they understand where the opportunities are to better engage rural communities, but also for rural communities to understand where there are opportunities to better engage the federal government and the opportunities that may be coming out through the federal government. We're very excited to be a partner in this webinar. It's a great opportunity to hear about the funding that EDA has through the Regional Innovation Strategies, but also a great way to partner with EDA, NACCE, and a number of other partners in ensuring that the communities that we're serving and working with have an idea of what opportunities are out there, and we can assist those communities both in applying and understanding what the technology as well as what the actual opportunities might be through these programs. So with that, I will pass it back to Craig, but appreciate the opportunity to partner with this and get the word out.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nathan. As the experts and real leaders in the industry, we really rely on you to help us get this word out. So thank you for that, and thank you to the National Association for Community Colleges Entrepreneurship, NACCE, Becky Corbin, who couldn't join us today. I know she's in travel, but entrepreneurship is a team sport, and glad to be able to leverage your expertise and network to help us with this effort. So thank you. Here we are, the Regional Innovation Strategies Program. This is authorized, the program's authorized for the America Competes Act of 2010. A little policy wonkiness there for those that are really interested. What this is, though, it's kind of like our Bible. It's kind of what gave us or brought us into existence. It's a great starting point. If you want to read some legislation, it's pretty short and quick. Section 27 that covers us, and yeah, it'll give you a good background of what we are trying to drive in regional economies. But more specifically, you could also start with the profiles of the 140 grants that we've made across the nation over the last 4 years. We've got those profiles, those project profiles are on our website. If you drill down into the RIS webpage and click on the I-6 challenge or the Seed Fund Support Grant, you'll discover there are links for specific award years, 2014, 15, 16, and 17. And every grant we've made should have a general project write-up on what they're trying to do and the outcomes they're trying to drive. The takeaway here that I'd like to communicate is we have just about supported every type of industry, every type of organization, with some limitations, with some eligibility constraints. For instance, we don't fund for-profit entities. We don't fund certain types of venture funds. But of the organizations that we can support, we've supported just about every type: rural, urban, community colleges, HBCUs, Tier 1 research universities, nonprofits of all types, economic development organizations, municipalities, county governments, many more. We'll get to the eligibility constraints in a bit, but hopefully what I want you to take away is this program can absolutely be for you if you're trying to support the types of activities that we're looking for. So with that said, this is our biggest year of funding yet. We have 21 million and applications are due on the 29th of August. I hope that this year's extended application period will get more people or give more people the ability to pull together an application. We recognize it is a lift, but with that said, we cannot accept any applications after the 29th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. We simply cannot. There are some very important rules that we need to respect to maintain a fair process. So, what is the I-6 challenge? We're looking to support entrepreneurship that's bringing high-tech, high-growth ideas, whether it's products, services, or a mixture thereof, into the market to create new businesses. Those businesses create jobs, increases regional dynamism, increases exports. You don't have to accomplish all of these, but we're looking for programs that are in this wheelhouse. How do you accomplish those outcomes? Well, there are a number of different ways to support high growth entrepreneurship. It could be mentorship, it could be technical assistance, it could be courses at a university that are helping student entrepreneurs take the technology from the research side of the college out into the market. It could be unique access to corporate partners and their commercialization or innovation arm. There are a number of ways to accomplish this, and my emphasis is on should be what works well for you, what is the gap in your community, and how can you address it to achieve the outcomes we're looking for under this program. The one thing must emphasize, this is not for startups, and our funds cannot be passed through to the entrepreneurs or to businesses themselves. These are to support the activities, the network formation, the curricula, technical assistance that many entrepreneurs, many businesses will be able to leverage. So no cash prizes, things like that. The Seed Fund Support Grant, now that we're supporting the programming, the technical assistance for entrepreneurs to learn, build, and grow, oftentimes they need capital. Right now, there are major gaps in the capital market, particularly early stage venture. There's a large concentration of that in California, in New York, and Massachusetts. And within those markets, it's mostly San Francisco, Boston, and New York City. So how do we change that equation? We want to increase access to capital with this grant. This is early stage risk capital. This is not debt. We are not providing small business loans. This is not a revolving loan fund, but this grant is to support activities like angel networks, operational costs of a new venture fund. It could be for general partners trying to stand up a new ag tech fund in Iowa. It could be a hardware-focused clean tech fund on the West Coast. There's no shortage of examples, but again, the desired activities and outcomes are the efforts that will support the formation, launch, and growth of new venture funds, new angel investor activity, and new capital flow in that early stage venture market. This is what's available. We require a one-to-one match. Again, we require a one-to-one match. Since we are a federal funder and we do not always know the nuances of every community, the match requirement really helps us understand who's going to bring this forward on the grounds, what type of coalition exists to support and push this effort forward. And of course, it's a resource as well. We don't want to be the only investor with skin in the game. We want, just like any entrepreneur or business would pursue funding for their business from a variety of channels to increase their network, increase their knowledge base and their stakeholders. We hope to be the catalyst that can help drive a coalition forward at the community level. With that said, many of you might be inspired, or you're already on your computer looking on our website. You're heading to the RIS webpage, eda.gov/OIE, and looking for profile examples. And please don't try to emulate prior awardees. Seek what you think works best or will support your efforts in the best way. That type of authentic, natural pitch will be the best solution from my perspective. I want to go back to this one more time, and on that note, if you're thinking about the best approach and the right fit for your community, what gaps are there, what solutions or what new strategies do you need to build to support entrepreneurs, or what existing ones are there that are working really well that we can help scale, new or existing. We're looking for a great ROI, a return on investment. And at the ceiling of, with the I6 challenge, at $750,000 or $300K for the seed fund support grant, we are investors. We're going to want a return on investment. And we recognize that there are some really compelling proposals or opportunities out there at the 200 or 150 level for the I6. When you see 750, do not think, please do not think that this is, you must put together a $750,000 program. We recognize that there can be hugely impactful strategies that we can help stand up or scale for much, much less. So my emphasis here is those are purely ceilings. You do not have to pursue the max. And in fact, I would encourage you not to, because again, we are investors, and unless you think you can really make a super competitive proposal that's going to stand out above the rest, maybe it's best that you focus on something a little bit smaller. That's all I'm saying. So one size fits all. Here's some inspiration. One size does not fit all. And these are just a couple quick examples. UNC, under our program or with our assistance, stood up in 2014 the NC Growth program. This was a great network strategy where, using the critical mass of students, researchers, technologists, and mentors on the UNC campus, they connected specific teams and talent with high-scale potential businesses in rural communities around North Carolina. You see the examples at the bottom there of Flanders Solutions, one of the leading residential and commercial air filter suppliers. Helped them devise new strategies to scale. And same thing with Taylor Fish Farm. It is one of the few entirely sustainable footprint fish farms that exists, and did a new marketing strategy for them with some talented MBA students and mentors out of UNC. Next up, the Thinkubator, a great community college, managed by Mohawk Valley Community College in upstate New York. It's just outside of Utica. They partnered with the local, not local, it is the U.S. Air Force Research Lab for New York, and local business leaders, and of course the student population and local entrepreneurs to bring exciting technologies through incubation and into the market. That was a 2016 grant, I believe, and because of the Air Force lab there and their proximity to an airport that has some identified experimental airspace, they've grown a great technology cluster around UAV and UAS technology. So that has been a great example of a region identifying some assets and strengths and helping drive that to become a true identity of the local economy. So up there in Utica, they've got a great growing cluster of UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles, technology and systems. In Colorado, on the western slope, so west of the Rockies, southwest Colorado is very rural. Through SWIC, the Southwest Innovation Corridor, they've built a network of entrepreneurship support programs and mentors. And it's not on the slide, but even about a year, this is very recently, so about 2 years later now, they've also stood up a new venture network, or a venture fund network, an investment fund to make investments across this region. And it was really one of many outcomes of a stronger network supporting entrepreneurs in the region. Which otherwise might have gone overlooked or less connected without the efforts of this program. The business examples there, I think those are really in line with some of the core assets of the region. Bramble Outdoor and Apres Active, both focused on the outdoor recreation, business and culture, the cluster concentration that they have in the region, and great examples of businesses leveraging the talent and experienced investors from that region because of the cultural assets and the current industry concentration they have. So those are the three, these three. So Southwest Innovation Corridor, the Thinkubator, and UNC. I hope these are just a few that might inspire you to develop some strategies to tackle this grant. If it makes sense, if you think it could support the types of activities you're trying to stand up or scale, just as long as you're making sure that we're supporting all types of entrepreneurs. We are a federal funder and do have important Title IX requirements. So with that, that's a great background on the grant. We'll get to some specific questions. We want to hear from you all at the end, and we've got some example frequently asked questions as well. But Andrea Fasanich, who has also been with us since 2014, the very beginning of this program, and has managed the back end of the processing and the systems for this, is going to walk us through some important details around preparing the application and sometimes, most importantly, submitting the application. So, Andrea.
Thanks, Craig. Happy to be here. As Craig said, I will go through the more technical side because he did all the fun slides talking about our awesome rural grantees and our two really amazing grant programs. But this is also really important information, so I'll try to keep it light and move through these slides quickly. So as you see here, one of the questions that we get a lot from our applicants is what exactly is our review process, our application review process. So as you see here, it's broken up into kind of 4 steps. The first one is application submission, and then technical, and then merit review, and then we get to selection. So this entire process usually takes anywhere from 90 to 120 days. So keep that in mind when you submit your application and you're wondering why we haven't gotten back to you yet. Very, very quickly, just going to go very high level of each of those steps. As Craig mentioned, and we'll probably say it again during this webinar, the deadline is Wednesday, August 29th. We don't take late submissions unless you have a legitimate systems issue, which would be grants.gov completely crashing, which hasn't happened in the last 4 years, and I don't anticipate that happening this year. So please get your application in early if possible. The second is our technical review. We focus on kind of three main topic areas during this review, and it's, are you eligible? Did you provide the match requirement? Did you meet the match requirement? And did you provide all the documentation that you are required, depending on what type of entity you are required to submit? So once your application has gone through the technical review, it will move to the merit review. And during the merit review, your application will be reviewed by 3 to 5 federal employees across several different agencies. And each one of those reviewers will submit their individual scores based on the evaluation criteria that will go into a little bit more details in one of the later slides. Once all of those applications are submitted, the top proposals are presented to the grants officer. He has his own set of evaluation criteria and tries to make sure that geographically and by industry that we have a balance throughout our portfolio. And that's kind of a very quick overview of our application process. This slide, so one of the reasons that we've had probably 3 to 5 organizations not be able to submit their application on time is because they've had issues with SAM.gov and grants.gov registration. So the entire point of this slide is just to give you an idea that this process could take 23 or more business days. So please take a look at those registrations, make sure you have that up to date. If you're new to applying to federal grants and you're in the process of doing that, make sure you start early because it can take quite a bit of time. And then also, as I mentioned, during technical review, we focus on those 3 topic areas. Are you eligible? Did you meet the match requirement? And do you have all the documentation? So this slide represents all of the eligible entities. If you are not sure whether or not you're eligible, feel free to reach out to your EDA regional representative. We have one in each of our 6 regional offices. They'll be able to take a look at your organizational documentation and just make sure that you or your co-applicant, that everything, that you're eligible under our program. One thing that I'll point out is that if you are a current I-6 or current seed fund support grantee, you cannot apply to the same program. So if you're a current I-6, you can apply to I-6, the 2018 I-6 program, but you could apply for the seed fund. So that's just one additional point that I wanted to make. And I'll reiterate kind of what Craig said earlier. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a startup and you're listening to this webinar, you are not eligible for funding under our program. We're really focused on nonprofits and universities and the rest of the list that you can see there. Moving along to matching requirements. As Craig mentioned, we do require a 1-to-1 match. So for example, if you applied to the I-6 and you're requesting $500,000 of federal funding, you would be required to provide $500,000 of match. And that can be cash or that can be in-kind. In-kind contributions. The most common contributions that we see from organizations are space, personnel that goes towards the project, potentially equipment that you will allow entrepreneurs and startups to have access to, or services. So maybe a local law firm that's providing some legal services to your entrepreneurs. So those are types of in-kind matching contributions that you can propose for the project. 2 points on this. You will need to provide a commitment letter that is signed by the authorized representative for each of the matching sources. So for yourself as the lead applicant, for any co-applicants, and any third-party organizations. So make sure that you have, if you have matching coming from 3, different organizations, make sure that you have a matching, a commitment letter for each one of those. And make sure that you're using the 3 magic words, that it's committed, available, and not encumbered. And the last point with the technical review, here on the slide, you can see all of the required documentation for a complete application. Depending on what type of entity you are, you may have to provide all of them. But one second. Probably the best way for you to make sure that all the documentation that is required for you or your co-applicant the best way for you to make sure is to use the resource that's on page 40 and 41 of our notice of funding. That is our checklist. It's really great. Just look, make sure that you identify what type of entity you are and what type of documentation you have to provide. As you can see on the slide, we don't want anyone to get knocked out during technical review for not providing a simple, support letter from a, local government or something like that. So please use that resource. And we also offer a pre-submission technical review. And just basically what that means is when you have your application complete, you can send it to one of your EDA regional representatives, and they'll just let you know that all the documentation is there and it's complete. So this ensures that you make it through technical review and your application is reviewed during for the merits. And then I'll hand it back over to Craig. He's going to go through the project and budget narrative slides.
These slides are all going to be available online, and in fact, only are slightly different from prior presentations that we've given. So easy to reference, and you can check out this list right here as well as many of the other slides I'm about to present. So I'd like to provide you something outside of just what's on the slide, and that is the components here that we're identifying are an important piece of a successful project narrative are exactly that. They're components, but together, what they're saying, what they're composing, if you will, is a clear and compelling investment opportunity for us. I mentioned this earlier where I'd encourage you to take the same approach as an entrepreneur would with their startup and business. What is the gap in the market? What are you building, scaling, or providing that can address that gap? Why are you uniquely suited to build that, scale it, support it, the team, the environment, the organization that you have and such, and how are you going to do that? And make the pitch. I think if you take that approach, I think you can put together a compelling argument. At the end of the day, we are investors looking to make smart, meaningful, impactful investments. So the budget narrative, again, you can reference this online, but just making sure that you're connecting what you're saying in words to what you're saying in numbers, and that it can be reviewed and understood by a majority of newcomers to your organization. It shouldn't be too wonky. It shouldn't be too technical or complex. And to accomplish this, one great, easy, simple tip: prepare and finish it early and have a couple people outside your organization review it. Also have a couple people outside of your industry review it. If you're focused on a specific type of technology sector, it might help to find someone outside of that to give you some honest feedback. I know that might sound a little straightforward or elementary of a tip, but it's you'd be surprised with the types of proposals that we see. So be clear, be concise, make the pitch. Next up, hold on one sec, slide delay. There we go. Evaluation criteria, straight from the notice of funding opportunity. These are the elements that we'll use to evaluate the proposals. Maybe most importantly, who will be doing this evaluation? And going back to my earlier point on being clear and concise, we'll have well over 100 federal program leaders from across Small Business Administration, from U.S. Department of Agriculture, from Treasury, from Department of Energy, federal program leads that are supporting entrepreneurship and innovation in different ways will help us with this review. They will not necessarily be experts in your community, so from your state, or from your region, or sometimes your industry. So it's important to communicate the activities and outcomes in a way that an innovation, entrepreneurship program manager at large could understand and connect with. So we'll make these by the end of this calendar year. Stay tuned, of course, to our social media. Official notifications will go out through the point of contact that's identified on your application. Make sure that that is not just some random email in a grants office or a finance office. Make sure that that point of contact is someone who can be responsive and understands what your program is. And also, in case we need to reach out during the review process, if there's something that needs to be clarified, we're going to need that point of contact, the right point of contact. Similar tips that I've hit on in different ways throughout the presentation. I think starting early is a great way to put your best foot forward. 9 times out of 10, we can tell when an application has been reviewed. I know I sound like a college professor here, but it is true. We've all read something that was rushed. Use data, evidence-based. And it's not, we also recognize that some of this is forecasting, where we're asking you to make the pitch of what your program, what your effort, coalition is going to bring to the region. And we know that those are not 100% certain. But we like to understand how you're thinking, what research you're using to support your theories, and just in general, what's behind the idea. So that's where the data comes into play and the research. On community support and commitment, I will emphasize that you can show that in a number of different ways, not only in the narrative itself and discussing who's joining with you or what parts of the community college, what offices within the organization are involved, but also in support letters. You can show that who is supporting your program with perhaps some cash or in-kind services, or who's just supporting it from an endorsement perspective, and what is it going to mean for their role in the community, how will they benefit, and why are they interested in it. What I'm getting at there is form support letters are a start, but support letters that communicate a real, true, unique message are most helpful.
So the way that we have our program set up is that we have OIE here in DC headquarters. So if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to Craig or myself. And we also have regional, EDA regional representation reps, we call them EDA reps, in our 6 regional offices, so you can see where your state falls. They'll really be able to help you with, filling out forms and some of the more technical questions. So feel free to reach out to them if you have any questions on your application as you work through completing it. Here are some links. As Craig mentioned earlier, all of these links, all of these slides will be available on our website, and it'd be simple for you to find them. One thing that I want to highlight on this slide is on the right, you'll see a link to our project descriptions. We have descriptions of all of our 140 projects, so feel free to take a look at that. And then we have also on our website a frequently asked questions document that we periodically update with questions that we receive during these webinars. So one thing I would highly recommend, if there's a question that you have, to take a look at that document, but we've also put up here on the slides a few of the questions that we get the most. And so I'll start off by asking Craig, my organization is a for-profit entity. Can I apply for the grant?
Oh, one of my favorite ones. You had to start with this one, didn't you?
That's a tough one, yeah.
Okay. Most of the time, no. Sorry. And I know we're here to support entrepreneurship and business formation, right? So why aren't we supporting businesses themselves? Well, we are really here to focus on the intermediary teams, and that is community college. This is at the core part. It's a real asset. It's a community convener. It's an enabler for the region, and they're able to reach hundreds of entrepreneurs and businesses. That's a nonprofit that is trying to mentor, teach, equip entrepreneurs. It could be an economic development organization. So, in fact, yes, we do support economic development organizations. Many of those, a majority of them, a strong majority of them, though, are nonprofit. If you do happen to be a for-profit economic development organization, meaning you identify as an economic development organization, it is in your bylaws, it is in your formation documents, then perhaps you could be eligible. But to be sure, you should have a one-on-one conversation with us. So same thing for research parks. That pretty much sums that up. Public-private partnerships, speaking of the for-profit private entity, this is another one that comes up. What defines a public-private partnership? A public entity is that of a state, city, or other political subdivision of a state. It could be the city itself. It could be an economic development office for the city or the county, subdivision of a state or agency thereof. So that is what we define it as a public-private partnership. It is not a nonprofit partnership with a private entity. So with that, next slide.
How do you determine who the co-applicant is and what forms are they required to submit? So if you're not sure if an organization is going to be a co-applicant, I would say the first thing to do is reach out to your RIS rep. But technically speaking, if an organization is receiving the grant funding to do work on the project, they can be considered a co-applicant. But like I said, again, if you're not sure, just feel free to reach out to your regional rep, and they'll be able to answer that question for you. And this next question is, what if my organization plans to engage a third party that is not a co-applicant to perform a portion of the project activities? Is this third party considered a co-applicant? So one of the things that happens a lot is grantees or applicants, when they're creating their proposal, they realize that part of the project scope can be done by a different entity. And so they're going to outsource that part of the project. That has to take place in a competitive, an open and competitive process. And like I said, your RIS rep will be able to walk you through what the process is like. But basically, it starts with a RFP that gets sent out, and all organizations can apply, and then you make your selection. So it has to be, like I said, open and free, competitive process for outsourcing that type of project work.
So next up is we got a question about, could a program that's aimed at helping other incubators be eligible and competitive. I think if you, again, focus on the activities and outcomes, are your efforts focused on supporting high-tech, high-growth entrepreneurship? Possibly. I need to know more there, but again, we're looking to support activities that are generally focused on the incubation and acceleration phases of entrepreneurship and technology commercialization. We will not support, with that said, we will not support a small business incubator. That is really for the Small Business Administration, SBA, Main Street business, if you will. We're looking for businesses that have potential to disrupt industries, create dozens of jobs, if not hundreds or thousands, and bring game-changing technologies to the market that will make us more competitive as a nation, make our regional economies more dynamic, and bring great high-wage, high-skilled jobs to a region. For the seed fund grants, similar sentiment. Can you use the seed fund grants to stand up a small business loan fund? Unfortunately, that type of investment instrument is debt focused, and for that alone, it's not in line. We only support equity-based investment activity, but more importantly, the businesses that would support, most of them would not be in that high-tech, high-growth realm. So
I think we're looking at the chat right now. It looks like we've answered all the questions that are there. Like I said earlier, we will be updating our frequently asked questions. So please, in the next week, take a look at our website. That should be updated with questions that we've received across the webinar that we did last week and the two that we're doing this week.
Are there any final ones? All right.
Craig and Andrea, this is Nathan. I just wanted to thank you guys very much for the opportunity to co-host this webinar and certainly to get the information out to those folks. We'll certainly make sure that we funnel any questions that we get through our network back through the appropriate people at EDA, but thank you again for the opportunity.
Yes, thanks, Nathan. And on that note, I got one final question that just came in. This is a tough one. And Nathan, I think this is really going to resonate with you, and I'm glad we can close with this. Quote, how realistic is it that high-tech companies will locate in rural, impoverished areas like the Mississippi Delta? Well, we understand that many rural communities are dealing with some challenging economic times right now. But with that said, we understand that many communities are jumping headfirst into these challenges with creative solutions to drive a very new and different type of local regional economy. This program is not relevant for every type of rural community, but I know, because we've got a number of them in our portfolio, a number of great forward-thinking organizations that are looking to build the businesses of the future for their regions, that have stepped up and taken a leadership role. So please don't think that we are trying to push this onto your community. We recognize that this is not a fit for every rural community at this point, but if you do have the conditions and momentum building for this type of technology-based economic development, this type of entrepreneurship support, we hope that you'll consider us. And if you're not there yet, I hope that you'll consider reaching out to Nathan and his team. They're doing such great work to support this type of economic development. And I know for a fact that there is a coalition of stakeholders moving forward, whether it's all our friends from the Rural RIS conference and many others that are trying to start this conversation, scale this conversation in these communities that can really leverage it. So thanks for asking that tough question. I think that's a great way to close. Nathan, thanks again for you and your team's effort, and to NACCE, the National Association for Community College for Entrepreneurship. Always a pleasure partnering with them, and they've been such great advocates for our work and across their membership body. So please reach out to us, check out our website, and we hope this has been valuable. Thanks so much, folks.
And Craig, just one more thing in relation to that question. My only other sentiment would be that this is a gradual process for these communities, right? So building an entrepreneurship ecosystem helps to encourage high-tech companies into coming into these communities, but also, this is also for high-growth companies. And so not all companies that are high-growth are high-tech. So I do think that there are certainly opportunities, but it is certainly a piece to this puzzle.
Amazing point. Thanks so much. Totally agree. Thanks, Nathan. All right, folks. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for your time. Best of luck.
Thanks so much.